There are some new moves by the Trump administration that show, depending on your perspective, just how serious or how callous they are in cracking down on immigration. Let me give you 3 examples. A mother and 3 kids, including a 3rd grader, just released from federal custody, but only after a huge protest by members of their small community. Funding has been pulled from a half-century-old program to help refugees and migrant children. It's a move the U.S. Catholic bishops call heartbreaking. But no budget concerns for ICE, now looking for bids on $45 billion in contracts for detention programs. Compare that to the last fiscal year when ICE spent $3.4 billion for its entire custody operation. All of it begging the argument, what is the role of morality in government and working with churches and charities and communities to elevate our country? I want to bring in somebody who's been thinking and writing a lot about that, the former Republican governor of Ohio, John Kasich, and author of the new book, Heaven Help Us, How Faith Communities Inspire Hope, Strengthen Neighborhoods, and Build the Future. Your book talks about this. It talks about how these faith communities bring together people in mission, right, to do things in their community. But when you see funding changes, when you see policy changes that have a direct impact on their ability to carry out that mission, what does that mean?
Well, I think 2 things. One is, we see protests going on in the country where people are saying, enough's enough and it's gone too far. And I think they're having an effect. I don't think they've changed anything yet, but because a lot of the people who are for Trump want to continue to give him a chance. But the ICE raids, where you're grabbing people who have no criminal background, they're even here legally being grabbed, people look at that, and I think the more they know about it, the more you report on stories like that, the more worked up they're going to get. And you can see the pressure on Trump now as it relates to the tariff issue, where a bunch of big people have been banging on him saying this is the wrong policy, and you begin to see him giving way a little bit. But look, the whole purpose of this book, Chris, is to be in either your church, your synagogue, or your mosque, and find your purpose and build a stronger community. Forget all this stuff that's going on up here. If you want to deal with poverty, if you want to deal with the homeless, if you want to deal with human trafficking, if you want to deal with foster care, if you want to deal with autism, this is a playbook for how you, using these institutions, they're working with you to provide you some resources, maybe some people, some psychological support. If you do that, you can begin to change things from the bottom up.
Well, let me talk about one specific example I gave. That one New York town, small town, right? And a family goes away. And that community rallied. They were devastated by what they saw happen, a mother and her 3 children. Here's what their teacher told us at NBC News.
It's devastating. It's devastating. We are public school teachers. We do not dictate who our students are. That's not our job. Our job is to educate and support and love all of our students, and that's what we're trying to do. I know that we live in a time that is very divisive, but I hope that we can be an example of coming together and do what's right. These students, their mother, they're not criminals. They're part of our school community, and we want them home.
She talked about the impact on the other students, seeing an empty desk.
Yeah.
Like the recognition that their friend was gone and that they've made a sign welcoming their friend back. But what do these demonstrations tell the Trump administration, tell elected officials generally about listening to the people in their community?
Well, what that shows is that there's an element of meanness in this policy. That, forget about the flesh and blood and the families. This is just what we're going to do. And I believe that's mean. And I think it's rejected by Americans. I don't think they like it. Look, what Americans, I think, really want are for the criminals, the ones who have violated the law, to be sent out of the country. For those who have been here and law-abiding, I think they're okay with them staying. And what they did was use community to try to raise this. And look, they got the family coming back. It's a shame they had to go through that, but it was the power of community. It was the power of the bottom up that actually affected this change. What this book does is to say, you're not alone out there. There's a place you can go in your church or your synagogue or your mosque. It's like, Chris.
But in the case, let's say in the case of the U.S. Conference of Bishops, U.S. Catholic bishops, they need that funding. It's funding, by the way, that went into place in 1975 under Republican Gerald Ford. They said these church organizations, these folks are the ones to deal with. By the way, people who are here legally, who have often fled violence, who have fled danger. And when that money goes away, yes, the people who work in those churches and work in those programs can continue to do it, but there's only so much you can do without the money.
Well, you know, it's everything is not about money, but what I will tell you is these Catholic churches, they're not going to quit. They're going to keep performing their mission. It may not be as robust, or maybe people inside the church will begin to put some of the money in to help them achieve this. But look, I mean, one of the problems I have with what the Trump people have done is they've just used a sledgehammer. Instead of looking at what programs really work and cleaning up the ones that don't, they haven't done that. And I've been arguing against that since the days they started this whole program of Dodge. But the Catholic Church is not going to give up. In fact, they're going to get tougher, and they're going to actually produce as much. I have no doubt about that. And so I'm not going to tell you those things don't matter, but what I can tell you is when you look at the stories, a man without any federal dollars feeding 571,000 people every single day, Hal Donaldson, Convoy of Hope, he's not looking for federal dollars. I mean, he can get help when he can get it, but he's not stopping. And it's the power of faith, Chris. It's the power of what lives inside of us in all these faith communities that really can drive change from the bottom up. We have to stop focusing all the time on the top down. If you're looking for a top-down savior, I don't think it exists. And when you think about the great changes in our society, particularly civil rights, Martin Luther King drove it from the bottom up, and guess where it started? In the church.
I have to let that be the last word. The book is Heaven Help Us. John Kasich, good to have you here, Governor.
You're the best.
2 Buckeyes.
Thank you.